Well, welcome, Greg. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Dan. How are you doing today?
You know what? I am doing awesome, and I am excited because, I don't know when this will be showing, but it's just about to be Christmas time. We're talking about snow, and I'm ready to bundle up. The only downside is that my wife's probably going to make me watch some Hallmark Christmas movies, which, I'm not that excited about
Nice.
at all.
Well, get your bottle of spray tears.
There you go. Yes, exactly. Practice poking myself in the eye, that kind of thing. Well, today we're talking about the missing piece in church finance. Dun, dun, dun. So what is this?
Did you have this book when you were a kid, The Missing Piece by Shel Silverstein?
Yes.
These two little...
20 years just flashed in my mind, or what? I haven't thought about that book.
Little puzzle pieces walking around.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's what I think of when I think of missing.
Okay. Well, we'll see. We'll put it in the show.
Podcast is about?
Exactly. Shel Silverstein is actually a surprise guest, and I'm going to introduce. We're talking about the missing piece when it comes to church finances. What is this missing piece for church finances?
I think the missing piece for church finance is really strategic finance.
Strategic finance. Okay, so and tell us, what is strategic finance for churches?
So when I think about strategic finance, I'm thinking of long-term planning or prioritizing funds to align with mission and vision. Things like understanding risk and things that could actually derail your mission completely.
Yeah.
Or aligning your dollars to make better decisions to support your mission.
Yeah, okay, great. And so why we say it's the missing piece is because we often think about our finances as accounting and the things that are needed to run your daily finances. And so if you kind of just think of a car, kind of accounting is kind of like looking in your mirrors, your rearview mirrors and your side mirror, because they tell you what happened in the past. They tell you where you are based on what got you there. You can see.
Which isn't super helpful if you're going 70 and 3 feet ahead is a big symbol.
Sure, exactly.
Stop.
It's important to know. And to understand, then looking forward, but, all it's doing is kind of telling you that. And then the other thing is we used to have this huge old book and this thing you'd plug into the car. So if the check engine light came on, plug in this thing and then look in this technical book and try to figure out what was wrong with your car. And if you're a mechanic, sure, that's super helpful. But for an everyday normal person, super confusing, right? Well, now, the car's hey, your tire's low or a light bulb's out. It just tells you what's wrong, right?
You know what I can't wait for is AI. But an AI robot because they're not out to screw you.
Exactly.
I feel like all mechanics, sorry mechanics, there's probably some honest ones out there. And they probably are in all of our churches, right?
That's right, exactly. Yeah. There you go. Yeah. Okay. So, when we think strategic, it's kind of okay, so accounting has told us what's happened in the past, but we want to look through the windshield and look out into the future and say, okay, we want to get there, and here's how we're going to get there. And we need to understand the health that got us to here, and if we're equipped for the journey. Do we have enough fuel? Our tires are okay? Do we have enough oil? All those things that are important health indicators, we need to understand those so we understand, are we actually able to get where we're trying to get to?
Yeah, I feel like a lot of pastors really don't want to hear the term budget.
That is for sure.
That is a quick way to get, most people probably to run.
Right.
I remember when I first got married and my wife was like, hey, have you heard of this thing called a budget? I'm like, no, tell me more. And that was the last time I ever said that.
How long did that go on for? Get a 4-hour spiel about budgeting?
It was a long budget conversation.
Yeah.
I was a bad offender. So, but really, pastors are asking strategic questions.
Right.
When can I get into a building? When do we stop renting or being portable? How can we never have to set up another chair or pull another trailer? Or also, when can we hire that strategic hire? Whatever that strategic hire is for your particular church. Sometimes it's a worship pastor. Sometimes it's a CFO. Sometimes it's a children's pastor. It just depends on where you are in your trajectory. But they're asking these strategic questions, and oftentimes when you ask the finance team, they don't always. I kind of experience they don't always know the answer.
Sure, right, because maybe get people that are good in accounting, but they don't really understand how to equate what has happened and to make that actionable for you, right? To say, okay, well, here's actually where you want to go. Let's make a plan to get there. And that's really what you're saying. A budget is looking into the future and saying, we want to get to that point. Do we have enough gas? Do we have enough oil? All those things. And then saying, okay, we might need to save some gas so we can make this journey. And so with a budget, we're just really saying, what's the most important? Let's do that.
Yeah, I started telling pastors, really, your budget is where you get to tell your dollars where to go. If you don't have a budget, you're telling your dollars, hey, be free. Go wherever you feel like.
Right.
Because that's what happens. It goes towards things and at the end of when you look back in your rear view, you see things like, wow, we spent this on that.
Right.
How did that happen?
Yeah.
It's just because you said, be free.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Well, okay, so there's a need for strategic help in thinking about your finances strategically. There's a few options. There's, having someone on staff, right? But that requires someone that actually understands this. This is not just, hey, here's a hat. Now be strategic, right? They really need to understand it. It could be volunteers. You mentioned like a financial team. And those may or may not be good. I know when I was an executive pastor, we had great volunteers that did so much for us. We also had people that were in a role that, for whatever reason, they didn't have the time, they didn't really have the skill, whatever, it could be limiting. Or there's something like working with a company like Parable that could help, right? So maybe you just talk about a little bit of those differences and why we said, hey, we want to step into this space. We see a need here.
Yeah, for one, we're all about helping keep dollars on mission. So if you're spending a lot of dollars on something you don't need, that's really not on mission.
Right.
And so I see the first category, most churches don't need a full-time, dedicated person to manage the finance and kind of look ahead. That's going to be overkill for most churches. There are churches that are large enough, that have enough complexity that they need a position like that. But for most churches, you're going to only need a fraction of that.
Right. Okay.
So that first one is really, unless you just get lucky and have somebody that's willing to kind of take a pay cut to come help you, which does happen in the church world, then count yourself lucky, and that's amazing. But most churches are going to not have that. Then you go to the volunteers. Volunteers, like you said, can be hit or miss. Some are amazing. Some have their own agenda.
Yes.
If they come with their own agenda, that's going to be really hard because they're going to be competing with vision for you. And then it's going to make you feel like you're running through the mud.
Yes.
Everything down to a crawl.
Yep.
And so that's obviously the negative side. The positive side is you could have some really qualified volunteers. Mm-hmm. And what we say to that is use them in like really great ways.
Yeah.
Don't give them things that are like the day-to-day things, right? Because the day-to-day things add up to a lot of stuff at the end of the month or at the end of the week. Whereas if you give them strategic projects where they're taking maybe your last quarter and looking at trends, okay, that's something that's really exciting and it's a project. That's where volunteers are better utilized in our experience. And then the third one, obviously, is hiring a company like ours. The great thing about that is because we have a whole team that is superpowers in this area, right? Like everyone on our team loves numbers, loves to look at them, loves to dig in and figure out trends. That's really what we love to do. And then on top of that, you're not paying for everyone on our team. You're paying for the fractional use of them.
Interesting. Yep, that's great. With that, we work with hundreds of churches, so it's not just one person sitting at a desk with one church of experience, but we're working with hundreds of churches and learning from the things we're seeing with all these churches and bringing all of that knowledge and all of those experiences into those conversations.
And I would say even in addition to that is we work with churches of all sizes.
Right.
So large churches that are thinking and doing things that maybe you're not ready yet for, but eventually you will be. It's better to know what they experienced, and we apply that all the way downstream.
Okay, well, give it to me straight. What is one takeaway or action item that every pastor needs to take from this episode?
Well, we've put together a church financial leadership assessment. This takes no more than 5 minutes, so it's really easy to complete, but it will give you a bunch of takeaways. And it'll point you to the resources to help you better steward your church's finances. So go to churchfinanceMadeSimple.com, click our free resources to find our financial leadership assessment. Take 5 minutes. You'll be glad you did.
Great. Well, thanks so much for joining us.